It was a bright and cheerful morning at Willow Creek Horse Farm, a well-known place where visitors could meet and ride beautiful horses. The farm was surrounded by rolling green hills, tall trees, and wooden fences that stretched far and wide. Birds chirped in the distance, and the fresh smell of hay filled the air. It was the perfect day for an adventure. A group of excited tourists had just arrived at the farm, eager to begin their tour. Some were families with young children, while others were couples and friends looking forward to the experience. Many had never seen a horse up close before, and their eyes sparkled with excitement as they took in the sights and sounds of the farm. The farm's owner, Mr. Carter, a kind and experienced horse trainer, welcomed them with a warm smile. He was an older man with a strong build and a love for horses that shone in his eyes. Beside him stood Emily, one of the farm's best guides, who was ready to take the visitors on a tour. "Welcome, everyone," Emily said cheerfully. "Today, you'll get to meet some of our finest horses, learn about how we take care of them, and even get a chance to ride a few. But first, let's go over some important rules to keep you safe." The group listened carefully as Emily explained the do's and don'ts of being around horses. She told them never to make sudden movements, to stay calm, and to always follow the instructions of the guides. Horses, she explained, were gentle but very strong animals. If they ever got scared, they could react in unexpected ways. As the tour began, Emily led the group toward the main stable, where several horses were waiting in their stalls. The visitors were amazed by their size and beauty. Some horses had shiny brown coats, while others were pure white or black. Their eyes were gentle, and their tails swished lazily as they enjoyed the morning breeze. Among them was Thunder, a powerful black stallion with a thick, flowing mane. He was one of the strongest and fastest horses on the farm. While he was usually calm, he had a lot of energy and needed special attention. Mr. Carter had trained him well, but Thunder still had a wild spirit inside him. As the tourists admired the horses, they had no idea that in just a few minutes, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would turn their peaceful farm visit into a heart-pounding experience they would never forget. The tourists were enjoying their time at the stable, admiring the beautiful horses. Some were taking pictures, while others were reaching out carefully to stroke the soft noses of the gentle animals. Laughter and cheerful voices filled the air as Emily shared interesting facts about each horse. Everything seemed peaceful, and the visitors felt comfortable. But suddenly, a loud, sharp noise broke the calm atmosphere. It came from somewhere nearby, echoing through the stable. It could have been a heavy metal bucket falling, a loud bang from the barn doors, or even the distant sound of fireworks from a nearby town. No one was sure what it was, but to the horses, it was unexpected and frightening. Thunder, the strong black stallion, was inside his stall when the noise startled him. His ears shot up, his muscles tensed, and his eyes widened in alarm. Horses are naturally cautious animals, and sudden, loud sounds can make them feel like they are in danger. Thunder's breathing became heavy, and he took a few quick steps back. His powerful hooves scraped against the wooden floor as his fear grew. The tourists noticed Thunder's sudden change in behavior. Some took a step back, sensing that something was wrong. Emily and Mr. Carter immediately turned their attention to the stallion. They had years of experience handling horses and knew that a scared horse could be unpredictable. "Everyone, stay calm and step back," Emily said firmly but gently. Her voice was steady, but she knew they had to act fast. Thunder's panic was increasing. He stomped his front hooves, shook his head wildly, and let out a loud, anxious neigh. His large body moved restlessly inside the stall, and the wooden door rattled as he bumped against it. The other horses in the stable were also beginning to react, shifting nervously in their stalls. Mr. Carter slowly approached Thunder's stall, speaking in a low, soothing voice. "Easy, boy. It's okay. You're safe." He had calmed nervous horses many times before, but Thunder was strong and unpredictable when scared. Then, before anyone could react, Thunder reared up on his back legs. His front hooves hit the stall door with incredible force. The old wooden latch, already weakened over time, couldn't hold against his power. With a loud crack, the door burst open. For a split second, there was complete silence. Then, in an explosion of movement, Thunder bolted forward, charging straight out of the stall and into the open space, where the frightened tourists stood frozen in shock. The moment Thunder's stall door burst open, everything changed in an instant. The peaceful tour turned into a scene of chaos. The massive black stallion, still terrified from the loud noise, charged forward with incredible speed. His powerful hooves pounded against the stable floor as he bolted straight toward the open area where the tourists were standing. For a brief second, no one moved. It was as if time had frozen. The tourists, caught off guard, could only stare in shock as the huge horse came racing toward them. His dark mane flowed wildly, his nostrils flared, and his eyes were wide with fear. Then, as if realizing the danger all at once, the crowd sprang into action. Some people screamed, while others instinctively jumped to the side, trying to get out of Thunder's path. Parents grabbed their children and pulled them close. A few people stumbled as they hurried to move away, their hearts pounding in fear. Emily and Mr. Carter acted quickly. "Move back. Stay calm," Emily shouted, waving her hands to signal everyone to step away from Thunder's path. But it was easier said than done. The stable was not a wide open field. There were fences, equipment, and other stalls all around. There wasn't much room to escape. Thunder, still running wild, was not thinking clearly. His instincts told him to flee, but in his panic, he didn't know where to go. He dashed past the tourists, his hooves kicking up dust as he rushed toward the open yard outside the stable. Just then, a woman near the front of the group lost her balance and fell to the ground. She gasped in fear as Thunder's massive form came closer. For a terrifying moment, it looked like he might not see her in time. People around her screamed, their eyes wide with horror. But at the very last second, something amazing happened. Thunder, despite his panic, reacted with incredible awareness. His strong legs pushed off the ground, and he jumped over the woman in one swift, powerful motion. His hooves barely missed her as he landed gracefully on the other side, continuing his wild run toward the open yard. The woman sat frozen on the ground, breathless, realizing how close she had come to disaster. A man nearby quickly helped her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. She nodded, still shaken but unharmed. Meanwhile, Thunder had reached the open yard, still running wildly. But the danger was not over yet. If he wasn't stopped soon, he could run toward the fences, or worse, onto the nearby road. Emily and Mr. Carter knew they had to act fast before something even more dangerous happened. Thunder's powerful hooves hit the ground hard as he charged into the open yard, his muscles tense with fear. His breathing was heavy, his ears pinned back, and his tail whipped behind him. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew that he had to run. The loud noise that had scared him was long gone, but his heart was still racing. The tourists inside the stable were still in shock. Some were holding their chests, trying to calm their breathing, while others whispered in disbelief. The woman who had fallen sat down on a bench, her hands shaking as she replayed the terrifying moment in her mind. I thought he was going to trample me," she said, her voice unsteady. Mr. Carter and Emily didn't have time to waste. They had to stop Thunder before he hurt himself or someone else. The open yard was large, but there was a wooden fence at the far end. Beyond that, there was a dirt road and then a busy highway. If Thunder kept running in the wrong direction, he could break through the fence and run straight into danger. "Everyone stay back," Emily shouted as she grabbed a long lead rope from the stable wall. Mr. Carter ran ahead, trying to position himself between Thunder and the fence. They had worked with frightened horses before, but Thunder was stronger and faster than most. He was in full panic mode, and that made him unpredictable. The tourists watched nervously, some whispering prayers, others holding their breath. They had come for a peaceful farm tour, but now they were witnessing something completely unexpected. Thunder reached the far end of the yard and stopped suddenly. His chest rose and fell as he snorted loudly, looking around with wild eyes. He was confused. He had run so fast, but there was nowhere else to go. He turned sharply, kicking up dust, and prepared to run again. But just then, something changed. A soft voice carried through the air. It wasn't loud or forceful. It was calm and steady. "Easy, boy. You're okay. Just breathe." The voice belonged to a man from the tourist group. He was standing near the stable entrance, his hands raised gently in front of him. His posture was relaxed, and his expression was peaceful. He wasn't afraid. Mr. Carter recognized the technique instantly. This man knew how to handle horses. A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger could help them bring Thunder back to safety before it was too late. Thunder stood at the far end of the yard, his body still tense, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. His powerful chest rose and fell with each heavy breath. The wind blew gently, rustling his dark mane, but he was too scared to notice. His mind was still in panic mode, and no one knew what he would do next. The tourists stood at a safe distance, watching with nervous eyes. Some whispered to each other, others simply held their breath, afraid to make a sound that could startle the horse even more. The woman who had fallen earlier was now standing, clutching her chest, still shaken by what had happened. Emily and Mr. Carter knew they had to act fast. If Thunder ran toward the fence, he could injure himself. If he broke through, he could reach the road, and that would be even worse. But rushing toward him could scare him more, and chasing a frightened horse was never a good idea. The man who had spoken earlier, the one with the calm voice, took a slow step forward. He was tall, with kind eyes and a steady presence. His name was Daniel, a visitor who had once worked with horses on his grandfather's farm. He knew that panicked horses needed reassurance, not force. Daniel took another careful step. "That's it, buddy. You're okay," he said in a soothing tone. His voice was steady, calm, and filled with quiet confidence. He didn't rush. He didn't make any sudden movements. He just stood there, allowing Thunder to see him. Thunder's ears twitched. He snorted and took a step back, uncertain. His muscles were still tense, ready to run, but something about Daniel's voice made him pause. The deep fear in his eyes softened just a little. Mr. Carter exchanged a glance with Emily. "Let him try," he whispered. They knew that Daniel might be the only one who could calm Thunder down before he hurt himself. Daniel took another slow step, his hands still raised slightly in a gentle, non-threatening way. "You're a strong boy, aren't you?" he continued. "But you don't have to run. You're safe now." Thunder let out a deep breath, his ears flicking forward slightly. It was a small change, but to those who understood horses, it was a good sign. He was starting to listen. He wasn't completely calm yet, but he was no longer trying to escape. The entire crowd watched in silent anticipation. Would Thunder trust this stranger? Would he finally stop running? No one knew for sure, but one thing was clear. Daniel had his attention, and this might be their only chance to bring the frightened horse back to safety. Thunder stood still, his powerful chest rising and falling with each deep breath. His muscles were still tense, but his eyes, which had been wild with fear moments ago, now held a hint of curiosity. He flicked his ears, listening to the calm voice speaking to him. The man, Daniel, had not moved too close or too fast. He stood patiently, letting the frightened horse decide what to do next. The crowd of tourists watched in complete silence. No one dared to speak or even shuffle their feet. Even the wind seemed to have slowed down, as if the entire world was waiting to see what would happen next. Mr. Carter held his breath. He had been around horses his whole life, and he knew that one wrong move could send Thunder running again. But he also knew that Daniel was doing exactly what needed to be done. Horses responded to energy. And right now, Daniel's energy was calm and steady. Thunder let out a loud snort, shifting his weight from one hoof to another. His ears twitched forward slightly, showing that he was listening, but he was still unsure. He had run because something had scared him, and his instinct told him to keep running. But now, this man in front of him wasn't trying to chase him or trap him. He wasn't even holding a rope. He was just standing there, speaking in a soft, steady voice. Daniel took a small step closer. "That's it, big guy," he said. "You're safe. No one's going to hurt you." Thunder exhaled loudly, lowering his head just a little. It was a sign that he was starting to relax. His powerful legs were no longer tense, ready to bolt. He was thinking now, not just reacting. Emily, who had been standing by with a lead rope, carefully moved forward. She didn't want to startle Thunder, so she kept her movements slow and smooth. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small treat, a sugar cube. Horses love sugar cubes, and sometimes offering one could help build trust. She held out her hand, staying a safe distance from Thunder's head. "Hey, buddy," she said softly. "I know you're scared, but you know me. It's okay." Thunder hesitated, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. The familiar scent of Emily and the sweet smell of the sugar cube made him pause. Slowly, carefully, he took a small step forward. The entire crowd held their breath. Would he accept the treat? Would he let them get close? And then, in the next moment, Thunder stretched his neck forward and gently took the sugar cube from Emily's hand. A wave of relief washed over everyone. It wasn't over yet, but this was the first step. Thunder was starting to trust them again. Thunder chewed the sugar cube slowly, his large dark eyes watching Emily and Daniel with curiosity. The taste was familiar, comforting. His breathing, which had been fast and heavy just moments ago, began to slow down. The panic that had filled his mind was now fading little by little. The crowd remained silent, watching with hopeful eyes. No one wanted to do anything that might startle Thunder again. Parents held their children close, and some visitors whispered to each other, amazed at how quickly the situation was changing. Emily took another step closer, keeping her body language calm and relaxed. She knew that horses could sense nervous energy, and if she showed any fear, Thunder might react. But she had known him for years. She had fed him, groomed him, and taken care of him since he was young. He just needed to remember that he was safe with her. "You're a good boy, Thunder," she said softly, reaching out her hand again. This time, she wasn't holding a treat, just offering a gentle touch. Thunder hesitated, his ears twitching as he thought about what to do. His instinct told him to stay alert, but something inside him trusted Emily. Slowly, he lowered his head, allowing her to gently stroke his nose. A sigh of relief spread through the crowd. Some people even clapped softly, but Mr. Carter quickly raised his hand to stop them. "Not yet," he whispered. "Let's not rush it." Daniel stayed nearby, his presence still steady and calm. He knew that horses sometimes needed more than one friendly face to feel safe. "That's a good boy," he murmured again, his voice warm and reassuring. Emily carefully picked up the lead rope she had brought with her. She didn't try to put it on Thunder right away. Instead, she let him see it and sniff it. Trust had to be built slowly, especially with a horse that had just been in a panic. Thunder flicked his tail and gave the rope a curious sniff. He wasn't as tense anymore, but he still had a bit of nervous energy left. His ears turned toward the stable, as if checking his surroundings. Then, finally, he made the decision. He took a small step toward Emily, lowering his head just a little. It was his way of saying, "I'm ready." With slow, careful hands, Emily looped the rope around Thunder's neck, securing it gently. She didn't pull or force him. She just let him feel its presence. Mr. Carter smiled. "Good job, everyone," he said quietly. "Now let's get him back home." The danger was finally passing, but the job wasn't done yet. Now they had to lead Thunder safely back to his stall without scaring him again. The next few moments would decide if this wild chase would truly come to an end. Emily held the lead rope gently, giving Thunder time to adjust. He stood still for a moment, his ears twitching as if he was still deciding whether to trust her completely. The panic in his eyes had faded, replaced by uncertainty, but also recognition. He knew Emily. He had always known her. The tourists watched in silence, their hearts still racing from the earlier chaos. Some of them had never been this close to a horse before, let alone seen one in such a wild state. Now, they were witnessing something special, a bond between a caretaker and an animal built on patience and trust. Daniel took a small step back, signaling that his part was done. He had helped calm Thunder, but now it was up to Emily and Mr. Carter to bring him home. He gave Emily an encouraging nod, and she responded with a grateful smile. "All right, boy," Emily said softly. "Let's go home." She gently tugged the lead rope, not forcing Thunder but guiding him. At first, he hesitated. His body stiffened for a second, as if he was about to resist. The open yard still surrounded him, and for a moment, he seemed unsure if he wanted to go back. But then, Emily took a slow step forward and gave him a reassuring pat on the neck. That was all it took. With a deep sigh, Thunder finally moved. His hooves made soft thuds against the ground as he followed her, step by step, back toward the stable. The crowd let out a collective breath of relief. Some people even smiled, while others shook their heads in amazement. A few children whispered excitedly to their parents, still in awe of the powerful horse. As they reached the stable entrance, Mr. Carter walked beside them, ready to assist if needed. "Good boy, Thunder," he said in a calm voice. "You gave us quite the scare." Thunder let out a deep breath through his nose as if he, too, was relieved. The familiar scent of hay, wood, and the other horses filled the air. This was home. This was where he felt safe. Emily led him back to his stall, opening the door carefully. Thunder stepped inside, his muscles finally relaxing. He turned his head slightly, looking at Emily with quiet understanding. She smiled and stroked his mane. "You're okay now." As she secured the stall door, the tourists erupted into soft applause. The tension was gone, replaced by admiration and relief. The woman who had fallen earlier wiped her forehead, shaking her head. "That was the scariest and most amazing thing I've ever seen," she said with a nervous laugh. Mr. Carter chuckled. "That's horses for you, always keeping us on our toes." With Thunder safely back in his stall, the danger had passed. The stable was peaceful again, and everyone would leave that day with a story they would never forget.